Hey, everybody, welcome into another edition of the Parenting Puzzle with Dr. Daniela Owen. My name is, everybody knows who Dr. D is. She's the star of the show, the brains of the operation. But just to introduce myself again, my name is Jake. I'm more of the median. I am just like everybody else. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm here to learn and to try to implement some of these tips and resources that we talk about on this podcast. And that's why we're doing it. We're doing it to help families to make their lives a little bit easier. One of the genesis of us doing this podcast was that parenting is really, really hard. So that's why me and Dr. D are both passionate about doing this podcast. You probably ask yourself why I'm doing this with her. I ask myself that question every time we do it, but here we are. And the goal behind this and why we're passionate about it is to help families with kids of any ages. So I'm very excited about the podcast today. Dr. D, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
You got any holiday festivities planned?
Oh, just a bunch of stuff with little kids. It's always, they keep you on your toes.
Definitely. So I'm excited today. Today we're going to be talking about some really pressing and things that really make sense for this time. So we wanted to come back and do another podcast around the holidays and things that might be challenges or things that might be some roadblocks for people for having just a really good holiday, either during the holiday or even after. So my first question for you, Dr. D, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
She's always ready. She don't have to get ready. So let's say I'm throwing a big holiday shindig, or maybe you're throwing a big holiday shindig. I heard you might be throwing one. And maybe the kids that we have, they're young, they're older, it doesn't really matter. They get easily overstimulated. They're not great with pleasantries, or maybe they're just like really shy by nature, not good at hi, not good at goodbye, still working through some of those social norms. Any suggestion? I don't know if I even framed that question right, but hopefully you understand where I'm getting at with it. So if we're having a party and we want to kind of prep our kids and prep some of the party goers about kind of what to expect, any thoughts around that?
It's such a good and important question because you're right. Some kids are just naturally very social. If their family is hosting, people come in, they're welcoming, they're shaking hands, they're giving hugs, they're just into it. Other kids, that's just not their scene. They're just not comfortable with doing that. And so that can be confusing for guests, and it can be especially uncomfortable for parents who are worried that the guests are going to think their kids are not being friendly, right? And that's not their intention. They want, or for example, they might think that they might worry that their guests think that the parents are not, raising polite kids, which could make them, the parents, feel really uncomfortable at this time. And it doesn't matter if you're the one hosting or if you're attending someone else's party. This idea of having kids not feel super comfortable with, like you're saying, introductions coming in. They might not want hugs, or they, might not naturally give a hello. This is very typical of kids who run on the more shy side or who suffer from some anxiety. And the best thing parents can do is actually not push their kids to say hi. So instinctively, to show that as a parent, you care about social niceties, that you are teaching your kids to be appropriate. You might do something like say hello, give them a hug. Come on, Mikey, give grandpa a high five. And if the child is really uncomfortable, that can be a really tough moment for everyone. So what parents can do to make that smoother is to say to grandpa or, friend Joe or cousin Billy, let's give Mikey a few minutes to just get comfortable with everyone being here, or just to get used to the scene. And I'm sure once he gets used to it, he will come play with you or say hello, or, sit next to you at the meal or something like that. And so that the parent acknowledges that this thing is happening and that it has nothing to do with the child being rude or not caring, but just that the child needs a few minutes to just adjust to that moment. It gives the child permission to adjust. It gives the other person information about what to do, right? Like, back off a little. It's okay. It's all good. It has nothing to do with you. You're not stinky or anything like that. It's just that this child needs a little bit more time. And so the parent doesn't have to feel stressed about, oh no, I look bad.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about the kid then retreating more, clinging or something like that. They can just let their child turn to their child. Hey, just get comfortable. I'm here. I'm right here. Right. And then let their child just kind of warm up to the moment and to the experience. And so the other person knows what to do. The parent has something to do, and the child doesn't feel put on the spot, which is going to make it even harder for them to start to adjust if they're constantly having to say or do or touch people, like and giving hugs that they don't want to give. That's going to just make it harder for the kid.
That's an interesting point. So basically, what you're saying is you're having a get together, whatever it is, small, big, extravagant, that the child is feeling shy, doesn't want to go hug grandpa or Mimi or anybody, Uncle Steve. I don't know. The best route is not to say, oh, no, go give him a hug. Like, it's more about letting them get comfortable in that space, right?
That's right. Exactly. Okay. Right. And trying to force the child to do that thing is going to unfortunately create the opposite effect of them having a harder time getting comfortable. And if they're uncomfortable, the other person's going to sense it anyway. So better off just telling everyone, let's just give them a few minutes to get comfortable. Let's just let her get settled a little bit. And then, we can try to have a little chat later on. Right. And so the child feels like they have the time they need to adjust, and the other person knows, okay, I could do that.
Yeah. What if it's a situation at the gathering where the child, maybe they're not struggling with being shy or something like, maybe they're just having a bad attitude because they don't want to be there? How would you handle that?
That's a great question. So that's when I would do something, I call it a sideline, where I would just take the child to the side and say, listen, I see that you don't want to be here, but this is what we're doing for the next hour or 2 hours. So you can make the most of it and you'll have a much better time. Or if you're going to have a bad attitude, you got to find a quiet place to go sit and not ruin other people's times.
Gotcha.
Right. So if they're trying to kind of make everyone feel bad, misery loves company, not going to work here. So you can kind of go and kind of pull it together and have a few moments to yourself, and maybe change that attitude, maybe choose to make the most of it. Or you can just join us, and even though this is not your first choice, you can just enjoy. There are some delicious things to eat or drink or kind of fun activities to do. Just make the most of it, and that's the plan, right? So if the child is thinking, well, if I kind of am, depending on how old or young they are, anywhere from throwing a fit to snarky enough, we're going to leave. As long as the parents let the kid know that's not happening, that really sets the stage for the kid to change their attitude. Because if they think, I might be able to get us to leave and not do this thing I don't want to do, or go do something else I'd like to do, if I give enough attitude that I make it so unpleasant for the parents. If the parents say, we're staying, right? We're staying. So you can join us and have some fun and make the most of it, or you can find a quiet place to go, kind of be by yourself, but we're going to be here. Then that child is making that choice from an informed place, right? Yeah. Rather than I'm just going to keep doing this thing to try to get the outcome I want.
That's interesting and great answer. That was not in our pre-show talk. So nice. It just came to me in my head. That's kind of what you get with me. But I thought it's an interesting thought process. It's like, hey, you don't have the authority here to make us change our plans. Right. Like, you're not sick, you're not shy, you just don't want to be here, right? At this personal event. So you got two options. You could adjust your attitude and try to have some fun, or you can go sit in the corner and pout, right? But you're not going to ruin our night or everybody else's night. Right. So, yeah, I really like that. So just moving on. So let's say Christmas is one of those seasons, right? That could be stressful for everybody involved. There's, especially for the parents, but there's this buildup. There's gifts to buy. I haven't even really started my Christmas shopping yet, Dr. D. That's my confession. Yeah, I'm a little behind. So, yeah, that's not good. But there's this buildup. And it's like, you got presents to wrap. You got parties to go to. You got presents to buy. You got this and that and X and Y and Z, and it could be a stressful time. And for the kid, there's a lot of anticipation, right? Santa Claus is passing. If your kids still think through that, and they're gonna get this toy they really wanted. It's really really fun. But then, just as it takes so long for Christmas to get here, it's coming up on Wednesday. It's really gonna come quick. It's gonna be a great day, and then it goes away. Then we get to December 26th, right? And maybe the child's feeling let down or frustrated, or because it's like, man, now I got to wait 364 days for Christmas to come again, right? And they're in a bad mood. They're edgy and just this or that. So for a kid that's kind of has that Christmas burnout of like, man, I waited so long for Christmas to come, so much anticipation. Now it's gone. And they're disappointed and frustrated by that. What's your thoughts on that?
So it can be hard for kids. A lot of kids are really resilient. They'll make it. It can be really tough on parents because, like you're saying, you're buying the gifts, you're wrapping the gifts, you're doing everything you can to make the holiday, whatever holiday you celebrate, make the holiday wonderful for your child.
Yeah.
And then you're getting this like grouchy attitude, which can be really disappointing for parents. So the first thing to realize is it's not personal. So don't take it personally. You have to realize that there is, exactly as you were describing, Jake, there's a lot of buildup to the holidays, right? Like everything from, all the commercials to the lights in your neighborhoods to Spirit Week at school where they're allowed to wear a different thing every day leading up to the holiday. There's so much emphasis that kids are building up adrenaline, they're getting excited, and then after all of the hullabaloo, even if it's wonderful, it might not be that the experience was disappointed, but their systems are now depressed. Their systems are down because they were so elevated that then their systems are going to come down. And so some kids, it's not super noticeable. And for other kids, they really might be grouchy or grumpy the days after Christmas or their birthday or any kind of big celebration. And so for parents not to take it personally is the first thing to do. The second thing to do is whenever possible, kind of having a little bit of a build up and a build down. If you think about it, if there was such a high, where's my hand? If there was such a high, and then there's a big crash, the low is going to feel really low, right? The difference is so big. But if you can kind of make it like a gradual climb and a gradual decline, it's going to feel a lot less abrupt. It's not going to be a post-holiday crash the way you might have, like you're saying, December 26th, right? Everything leading up and then it's over. And so this idea of spreading out activities, spreading out celebrations, making some traditions where you kind of lead up and lead down. So it's not just everything was leading up this one big magnificent day and then boom. And parents might be thinking, what the heck? I got you all these cool presents. You should be enjoying your presents, having a great time, playing with your friends on break. That's great in theory, but for some kids, the build up and the letdown is just an emotional shift, right? So it's not dangerous. It's not bad for them. You can just let them ride it out. But if you know your kid tends to be really upset, you can do things like save the cookie bake for after Christmas. As long as you're not like planning to serve them as all the cookies on Christmas, you can do that activity after and have all the friends over and do that. Or you can have some kind of celebration that involves, you decorate, but then maybe some kind of celebration in undecorating, right? Maybe it can be a gradual process instead of one big day. You kind of decorate little by little. So you build up what's going to finally be the decorated space, and then you kind of take it down gradually. So it just doesn't feel so abrupt. That can really, really help with the post-holiday blues, whether, like I said, whether it's Christmas, whether it's a birthday, whether it's some other kind of big holiday in your family. Trying to have it be more gradual up and down is really going to make a difference on their mood.
That's interesting. Can I ask another question just because I just thought of it?
Of course.
Okay. So let's say, hypothetically, I've never done anything like this when I was a kid. Never, ever. So they get a gift from a family member or maybe a parent, and they just don't like the gift. and the kid maybe struggle, like how can we teach our kids to have like the attitude of gratitude, even if it's like a pair of socks that they did not want or ask for? How to like like it's okay. I guess it's okay to be like, man, this is not quite the gift that I was hoping to get from Mimi and Poppy or from uncle or auntie or dad. But they're like, they get a gift. As adults, we don't really struggle with that as much, right? Yeah, okay, we don't have those expectations. But kids, and I had this when I was younger, right? I got a gift I didn't like, and I would just tell them like, hey, that gift sucked. Which that was probably not the best course, right? I was not a nice 8-year-old sometimes. But like to teach our kids to just be grateful with what they get, even if it's not exactly what they wanted, to be grateful what they did get. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, there are a few different ways to do this. So, first, just prepping kids. A lot of kids are pretty good if they know what to expect. It's that unexpected. I was hoping for whatever game, and I open it up, and it's a book that I didn't really want. And it's like, oh, book, or like, it's like socks. Who wants
Who wants
this,
a
right?
book? Yeah.
And so just kind of preparing them, whatever you get, whether it's this or this is what we expect. We expect you to look at the person, say thank you for the gift, and just be pleasant about it. Again, if your child runs really anxious and that's going to be really hard for them, then you as the parents can have a plan where you say thank you so much for the gift, and have the child write a thank you note or something that's less pressure later on. So just expressing gratitude is a good thing for kids to do, whether they like it or not, whether it's getting returned or not. The other thing you could do is set a new tradition with your kids where anything they got that they don't want, that you aren't going to, for example, return for whatever reason, you could always donate that gift. And so gathering as a family all the things that you got that you don't want or not going to use, and donating them to families that can't afford gifts over the holidays or don't get a lot of gifts. You can make donations year round at places like Goodwill, and just having a tradition where you bring all those things and drop them off. Usually, when you bring kids to those kind of places and they're making a donation, the people who work there are really appreciative. And so it makes kids feel good. And so just knowing that and explaining this to your kids, if the other people don't, that this is really important, that there are families that really need these things or really appreciate these things. And so thank you so much for passing along the things that you don't need or want. And so that would be a really nice way to help them experience that gratitude and really have that positive feeling of, ooh, I didn't want that, but that felt really good.
Yeah.
Most humans feel really good doing kind acts. That's why it's one of the things that's really good for our moods as humans, because we're pro-social creatures. And so when we do something socially positive, we feel good. So giving something to someone in need that you didn't want, you get to feel good. So even though you didn't get the thing that you wanted, you get to feel good passing it along to someone else who can use it or who would want it. So that's what I would suggest giving a try.
I really like that. It reminds me of what we talked about a few podcasts ago with like teaching them that other people are not in a situation. Like when we were talking, I think we were talking through Dr. D about like how to, if you're not in a financial situation, to get them the most fancy toy, right? It was important to start to ingrain those values of like, hey, we're not going to be as rich as some people, as poor as other people. Everybody's in a different situation. How can we have like an attitude of service to like our community? And that's a great, I never even thought about that, but that's a great tip. Hey, you don't want the socks? Let's go donate to somebody that could really use these socks because their feet are blue and they're going to fall off. So that's all the questions I had. So I think we're going to do my last segment. I even got a little intro thing for it now. Let me show this real quick, Dr. D. See if you like it. The last word with Dr. D on this topic. Anything you want to share as we enter into this holiday season of fun, but other things that we talked about maybe the letdown and the stress of parties and stuff like that. Anything you kind of want to share with that last final word here?
Yes. So, if I could give parents one overall tip, if this is the one thing you're going to listen to, is just try as much as you can to be patient with kids. They're going to be having a lot of feelings over the holiday season, whether they're feeling anxious going into a big group setting, whether they're feeling let down after the holiday festivities are kind of over, and just being patient. They're allowed to have their feelings. Their feelings are valid. It's okay if they feel uncomfortable going into that group, rather than pushing them to give grandpa a hug or, chat with cousin Steve, who they haven't seen in maybe a year. Just letting the other adults know, let's give them a few minutes to get settled, and let's just let them get comfortable. Let's just let her find her footing, and I'm sure she'll come around and want to hang out later. And so giving the adults the cue so that the child has the space to adjust, and then you can bring the child into it and kind of have everyone join together. So the idea is that you're not letting them off the hook for being polite, but if you know that attempt to be polite is not going to go very well, you are cueing the other adults. It's not because I don't teach my child to be polite. It's not because I don't value those social niceties. It's just that I know that my child needs a little bit more time, and that's okay. And same thing with the letdown. If your child crashes hard and feels grumpy, it's not you. It's not the wonderful way you celebrated the holiday, whatever that might have been. It's just that it's a lot to go from something big to something not. And so if you can make it a sort of more gentle, gradual decline, do that. If you can't, just recognize that'll be okay. And instead of trying to work so hard, don't you want to play with this toy? Don't you want to play with this toy? Don't you want to do this thing? Look at all these things I got you. Why aren't you happy? Why aren't you more grateful? Like, let them go. They'll adjust, and, give them a few days. Let them play with the stuff on their own. Let them come to it on their own. You don't have to work so hard. Just allow them to have their feelings. It's okay to come down hard after a lot of excitement and all of the excitement chemicals that we have running through our bodies. It's okay. And just being able to kind of be there with them, but don't take it personally. Be patient with them. Be patient with yourself, and you will all have a great holiday season.
That is awesome. Dr. D, I'm very grateful that you do this podcast with me. I think, I'm passionate. You're passionate about getting this message out there. And the number one thing you could do to help us out, that was a great transition. The number one thing you could do to help us out is to like the podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Dr. D's channel, Speedster Squad, Spotify. Like, share, comment. We want to get more people. Our bread and butter platform is going to be bringing regular parents just like me onto this podcast to get advice and tools from the wonderful Dr. Owen. So let's do that. I'm really excited to bring this podcast into the new year. Dr. D, everybody out there, I hope you'll have a great holiday season. Happy New Year. And we'll be having a new podcast coming for you soon that we're really excited about.
Thank you, Jake. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving us a review. It really helps us out and lets others discover the show.